is my coaching assessment on assessing risk for an indoor and outdoor facility at Loughborough College. I've been looking around the indoor facilities at Loughborough College, and I've noticed six hazards that I'll be talking about today. And the first one is the nets in the goal are dangling and trailing on the floor. The hazard from this would be a tripping or slipping hazard for the participants and maybe for the spectators and coaches when they are moving around to watch the participants play, or they could catch their feet and trip over and bump their head against the wall or on the floor, and this will cause a minor injury to the head, or they could get cuts and bruises from this. This is involving the participants, spectators and coaches could get all this. The risk score from this would be 4 between severity and probability of it happening. The control measure that will be put in, there'll be a cheap option which could easily be just tying it up to the wall, to a rope on the wall or something, or tie it up to the post of the goal. A more expensive option is to get a completely new net, invest in that and tie that up so it's secure and more safe for the participants, spectators and coaches. Also, in this sports facility at Loughborough College, there's an area for equipment, but sometimes this equipment is overloaded and it comes over the benches and too close to the sideline. So the hazard from this is tripping or slipping, or a participant that's running at high speeds towards this could fall into it, and this equipment contains hard stuff which could cause a minor injury or short-term injury, causing like a concussion, a bang to the head, or a broken bone or fractured bone. The risk score for this would be 5 between severity and probability of it happening. The control measure that we'll put in place is simply tidy up the equipment, make sure it's not too close to the tram line, or dedicate another store cupboard or room for the equipment to be put in so it's completely out of the way. The new risk score from this will be 1 because there's a smaller chance of any injuries, and the control measure that has been put in place. The new risk score from this will go down to 0 because if you put the control measures that have been put in place will completely stop any hazards or risk from any short-term or minor injuries from happening from tripping or slipping over the nets that are dangling on the floor. Also, by looking around the sports hall at Loughborough College, I've noticed another risk in the store cupboard where there's a fire exit, and this fire exit is blocked by equipment. The hazard from this is stopping people leaving quickly if there is a fire, and they could get stuck in the hall or the store cupboard. This is putting everyone at risk, including spectators, participants and coaches. The risk score of this would be 5 between severity of it and the probability of it happening. The control measure that we would put in place would be remove the equipment away from the fire exit to unblock it. We could make another store cupboard that has not got a fire exit in it and put all the equipment in there. From doing this, putting these control measures in to unblock the fire exit and stop people getting stuck in the store cupboard or the sports hall if there is a fire, the risk score will go down to 2 because there still is a chance of a fire, but is limited the chance of a life or death hazard or a long-term injury for any participants, spectators or coaches. Also, I've noticed that the dividing curtain could be a hazard or a tripping or slipping hazard, because it's either dangling out of the net, which people could bump in, trap their arm in and swing around and hit the head or anything like that, or the fact that it's been dangling on the floor and people hasn't put it back in the bag that's been provided for it to put back in. So this could cause that people could get their feet tangled up in it or slip on it, bumping their head on the floor or the wall it's next to. The risk score for this would be 5 between the severity of it and the probability of it happening. The control measure that we'll put in place is to secure the bag secure the net into the bag. If it keeps coming out, we would tie it up with rope to make sure it stays and it's more secure to stop people from tripping or slipping over it. The new risk score from this would be 1 between the severity of it and the probability of it happening. From this, we have stopped people from slipping or tripping over the divided curtain that's been put on the wall. This is my coaching assignment on assessing risk, and we are assessing risk on outside facility on the rubber crumb at Loughborough College. The first hazard I spotted on the rubber crumb was the bags on the sideline. This is a big hazard because it could cause a tripping hazard, which people could trip over, bang their head on the cage which is nearby, or bang their head on the floor, which can cause a minor head injury or cuts and bruises to legs and arms. The risk score I'll give this would be 4 between severity and probability of it happening. The control measure that I'll put in place will be remove the bags from the sideline, put them outside the cage so they still can be seen, so the spectators can watch them so they're still safe, or put them into the changing room which are nearby, lock the changing room door so they're still safe in there. The risk score I'll give this with the control measure in place will be 0, because with them out of the way there's no chance of the bags causing a problem or any injury to the participants that are taking part. What I've spotted on the rubber crumb is a litter that is around the sidelines and on the pitch. This can cause a tripping or slipping hazard, which can cause a minor injury to the participants that are playing the sport, to a minor injury being a bang to the head off the cage or off the floor, or tripping or slipping and causing cuts or bruising or burn marks on the skin. The risk score I'll give this will be a 4, but to stop this from happening, I'll put a control measure in of removing all the litter and make sure it won't happen again. I'll do this by putting a sign up outside on the entry saying please don't litter, so you've warned everyone that's come onto the pitch that don't put the rubbish into the bin when they leave the rubber crumb, and not just leave it on the pitch because what it can cause. From doing this, I'll give the new risk score of a 2, because there still is a possibility that people will litter on the pitch, but because of the warning, there is a chance that they'll stop and listen to what we're trying to tell them. By looking around the rubber crumb more, I've noticed that the touch lines are a bit too close to the cage. This can cause a minor injury or a long-term injury, depending on the speed that the participant's running at towards the touchline. The risk score I'll put in for this will be a 5 between severity of it happening and probability of it happening. The control measure that I'll put in place, a cheap option, will be just shorten the pitch for the participants to play in, so the distance between the cage and the touchline is much bigger, which can limit the chance of them getting injured. Also, you can warn the participants to slow down when they're coming towards the touchline, so if they do hit the cage, the impact of that is much less than it would be if they're running at high speeds. A costly control measure that could be put in place is to put the cage further away from the touchline, so there's more space for them to slow down when running towards the touchline. That's a costly option. The new risk score from putting these control measures in place will go down to a 2, because there's still that chance of them getting injured running into fence, with making the distance between the touchline and the cage longer. There's still that chance of them getting injured. Looking around the rubber crumb, around the touchlines and around the cage, I've noticed that there's a black net that's dangling on the floor, which can cause a tripping or slipping hazard for anyone walking around or running around in that area. This can cause a minor injury or cuts and bruises to the arms and legs of the person that's tripped or slipped over it. The risk score of this between probability and severity of it happening, I'll give a 5. The control measures that I'll put in place for this is completely remove the net, and this is a costly one because you'll still need a net there, so you'll need to get a new net which will cost a bit of money, but there's no chance that it'll be dangling on the floor because it's nice and new and there's no rips in it. Or a cheap option is simply just tie the net up high off the ground, so there's no chance of them tripping over it with the feet or getting their arm tangled in it and swinging around and hurting himself on the cage or the floor. The new risk score for this will be a 0 because there's no chance of it happening if there's a completely new net. But if you've just tied it up, there's still a little chance of people getting tangled up in it, so the risk score for that will be around a 1. Also, looking around the rubber crumb, I've noticed that the net goals are ripped up and a bit worn out. These are like dangling on the floor, causing a trip hazard for anyone running around in this area. This can cause minor injury, cuts and bruises, a bang to the head, simple as that. The risk score between the severity of it happening and the probability of it happening will be a 5, because there's a lot of people running around the goals and using the goals on the rubber crumb. The control measure that we put in place for this is simply just tie the net up or put the goals into an area that's not being used so they're completely out of the way. A costly control measure would be get new nets for the goals so there's no chance of them dangling on the floor and they're nice and new, and no chance of people tripping or slipping over it, which can limit the amount of injuries that could be caused on the rubber crumb. The new risk score for these control measures that have been put in place will go down to a 2, because there's still a chance of people running near the goals on the rubber crumb, because you don't know where people are going to run, and there's still a chance that people can trip over them. But if there's a new net, the severity and probability of it happening will go, and the risk score will go down to a 0, because there's no chance if they're brand new nets.